All right, welcome to the Beat Pain Podcast, where we learn about chronic pain and alternative solutions. Today, we're going to learn about CBD. I've got Matt Parks on the show. Matt, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So you do something with CBD. It's a little bit different. You've got a brand that's called One Less CBD. I'd love to hear about that. But first, before we get talking, can you just tell people how they can find you, websites, all your info?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website simply www.onelesscbd.com. That's all spelled out. So ONELESS Charlie Bravo David.com. That's our website, which tells everybody about our story, our formulation, what our experience has been with CBD and how we use it, how we're different from everybody else. We're kind of a small mom and pop, a startup with our own unique formulation that has some great stories and great testimonials behind it. We're really excited about it. We feel like we're doing something that really is making an impact, but we're also very careful about how we talk about CBD and the things that we can and can't say. We make sure that we are, spreading correct information and not making false claims about what the capabilities of CBD are, what we know, what we don't know. But especially for listeners of this show, what we always like to offer is a free travel size jar of our product. So they'll simply go to onelesscbd.com/rehab, and they will get a travel size jar of our product for $4.95. That's a great offer we like to put out there. Rather than having to invest in our 4-ounce jar right off the bat, you can just get a sample of our product, try it for a week or two, see how it works, and for less than $5, you get a chance to see if something's going to help you with your pain.
That's awesome. Thanks, Matt. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm especially excited to learn a little bit more about CBD. I've worked with a lot of folks who've had pain and they've applied CBD and they ask me thinking I'm an expert, and I have to tell them the sad truth. I don't really know a whole lot. So
Yep.
I am prepared this morning. On video you can see, but I've got my whiteboard right here so I can be
Cool.
taking notes.
Yeah.
And I am excited to learn a little bit more about what you do with CBD and how it's been working for you, giving it to folks. But before we get into all the nitty-gritty details, I'd love to just know your story. I mean, what got you interested in CBD?
My story is a long journey in healthcare. So born and raised in Northeast Baltimore City. I live now in Nashville, Tennessee, with my wife and 3 kids. I've got 3 daughters, 8, 5, and 3. All happy, healthy, young, energetic little girls. So I'm definitely a daddy's girl. And have ever, wrapped around 3 fingers, well, 4 fingers if you count my wife. So I am not the boss of my own world. So One Less CBD is kind of it's been my pet project now for about 3 years. But my journey in healthcare really started at a very young age. My mom has been a night shift ER nurse in Baltimore City for 45 years. My brother was a Baltimore City police officer, is no longer a Baltimore City police officer, but he was born with hydrocephalus and a Dandy Walker malformation. So basically, for the lay people, it basically means he was missing 80% of his cerebellum. Multiple neurosurgical operations. Ben Carson was actually his surgeon at Johns Hopkins.
No way.
Yeah, from the time he was an infant to the time he was 16, really adolescence when he was growing and his brain was growing, and you have that gap there. Basically, brainstem fluid that is building up and pulling up, and it basically makes your head like it's in a vice. It's the best way I can describe it. So multiple shunts, titanium mesh plate in his head, tubes that run from his brainstem into his stomach, multiple operations. And, now at this point, he's going to turn 40 since I'll be 37 in January. He'll be 40 in March. You wouldn't know it to look at him. Never know that he had, those issues growing up. It's not something that, really delayed him. He couldn't play a lot of contact sports growing up, but, he could still play sports, but then became a police officer, which he said he was going to do and did. But, in essence, still, he's kind of a jerk too. So I guess just growing up like that, he had a little chip on his shoulder. But basically to say is it made me a very independent kid. So I was constantly living with different families, from church families to grandparents, because my parents were busy with him. And, I was in and out of hospitals at a young age and really just got introduced to healthcare, very early on in my life. With my mom's experiences, with my brother, that was just me. So ended up becoming a pretty good baseball player. Went to college at Belmont University in Nashville and suffered some injuries there. So not the greatest college sports experience, which ultimately led to, when I'm going to practice every single day, I got to fight just to get on the field. And we're practicing 6 days a week. Well, I've
Mm.
got, I tear my rotator cuff and have a slap lesion tear in my labrum my sophomore year. I missed my entire sophomore year. Those next 2 years, I'm trying to fight for any time I can get to play. So I'm popping 5, 6 ibuprofen a day
Wow.
just to let my arm do what I need it to do. I need to, do better than the other guy just to get some time on the field. And that really led, and I wouldn't say it's so much an addiction as a need that I felt like I had to have. My mind told me if I didn't take 4 or 6 ibuprofen before practice, I was not going to be able to throw well.
Yeah.
My body was going to hurt. That led to, obviously, if I'm taking that much ibuprofen, my body basically gets used to it, really doesn't have an effect anymore. That moves to Aleve. I start to develop migraines. I developed depression after my parents' divorce, so I'm on Effexor, which I'm on for 10 years. I get off Effexor, I get on new medication. I've basically had my own journey with prescription medications. And really, I would say over the last 3, 4, 5 years have started to really dive deep into what I'm taking, what I'm putting in my body, how it's supposed to work, and how I'm supposed to really do healthy maintenance
Mm.
on taking these different kinds of pills. But my background really in the last 11 years has been in durable medical equipment, own and operate a medical supply company and deal directly with patients, people who have Crohn's, colitis, diverticulitis,
Mm.
urinary retention, spina bifida, rheumatoid arthritis. We deal with directly with patient care every single day. And you kind of heard these rumblings of CBD kind of coming up around 2016, 2017, like it's
Yeah.
coming. So you knew the companies were going to start calling us and say, you need to carry these CBD products. And, this is going to be the next great thing. It really helps people. I'm
Mm.
like, well, helps them how? What is the science behind all this? And um, that kind of led to the exploration of the space. And when I'm talking to patients every single day, the underlying common denominator for everybody was that there was some type of inflammation that started their progression of whatever disease they had. It was their body was telling them something's not okay.
Mm.
And they would start to just think it's indigestion or it's, acid reflux or it's, just it's wintertime. So my bones hurt during the winter. And it really wasn't that. It's the body sending them signals saying, hey, look, you've got rheumatoid arthritis, you've got, degenerative disc disease, you've got Crohn's, you've got any
Mm.
of these underlying causes. Um, and that, for me, I just really started to get an interest in what started people's pain, what were they doing to get out of pain, and really starting to dive deep into inflammation, which led to kind of a development into this CBD world. And it really was it was because of such poor offerings, and what I saw was just generic hand creams with CBD mixed in.
Mm.
I'm like, there's got to be more to this. There's got to be a better way to it. And that it was kind of put your money where your mouth is. If you think you can do it better, go out and do it. And
Mm.
that's really where the journey happened. So
Mm.
it wasn't arrogance. It was, I want to know. I want to dig into this and figure out if we could do it better. Because my customers didn't like it. They didn't like the way it felt. They didn't like the way it smelled. They didn't really feel like they were getting relief. And we were trying all these different brands, and I'm like, something's missing, and something's not right. And that's really kind of what led to the initial journey of just building a formula. It wasn't, there was no one less, there was no nothing. It was just, can we even build a formula out of this?
Mm.
And that I had some people who had been in the topical space for 10 years and were getting out of it and built an all natural topical. And, I kind of went to them and I was like, the CBD thing's coming and it seems like it has some validity to it. Can we do it? They're like, well, we can't do it, but you can. And I was like, oh, so I was like, let's try it. So it's 2 years in the lab, and mixing this, mixing that, and trying to pull a little bit of this ingredient out and getting the percentage right and making sure there's good precision to it. But, the benefit was for me that I got into a licensed co-packing facility right off the bat,
Mm,
an FDA licensed co-packing facility. That was the only way I was going to get into it, was that I could be fully transparent with my customers. I could tell them exactly what was in the jar. I knew exactly what was going on. This wasn't white label. This was our formula. This is us. It's
mm,
not it's not generic. It's something different. And that's kind of how it all started. It
yeah,
really wasn't more than that. It was kind of an idea on a piece of paper, and
yeah.
then you just build off that.
Mm, that's awesome. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. A lot of CBD, it became huge, really blew up. It was trendy, and I mean, I
Yep.
think I think it's still trendy, but a
Oh yeah.
lot of people were just like, oh, if I get a box and I slap a label on it that says CBD, people will pay big money and buy it.
Oh yeah.
And unfortunately, that's turned a lot of people off to CBD. And I think that there's a lot more potential that people haven't explored. So
Exactly.
um, I loved hearing your story. If you let me pry just a little bit,
Sure.
you talked about a bunch of medications you were taking. Has that changed for you as you, I assume, have been using CBD for yourself?
As far as in this, we'll kind of dive into this further. So I really hammered the topical space of CBD. I really understand it well. I know what the role CBD plays in that. I'm leery and still leery and want more information on ingestible CBD.
Hmm.
A lot of people have asked me, why aren't you doing the pills or the gummies or the tinctures? And I'm like, I just I don't know about the absorption. Once that goes into the mouth and we start ingesting it, what exactly is going on? What's firing? What's not? How much are we actually absorbing? Nobody can still tell you to this day how many milligrams you should take. There's
Mm-hmm.
no there's no regulation. There's no governing body. There's no nothing. As far as being able to tell you how to supplement yourself on CBD. So, and I say this in my website all the time, that I'm not at war with Western medicine,
Mm-hmm.
not in any way, shape, or form. I think everything has its time and place. Obviously, with something like the opioid epidemic, not everybody needs to be on the amount of prescription opioids that everybody is. It
Mm-hmm.
becomes an addiction, and then we get what we get: special interests, money, all that's involved. And now we're not helping patients anymore. We're just trying to please shareholders, and it's ruining people's quality of life. And so I am a firm believer. What I did, where I got in trouble with my antidepressant, with being on Effexor for 10 years, was I was just seeing my PCP, and he was just, you feel good? You feel all right? Yeah, I feel good. I wasn't going to the right doc. I was just saying, yeah, I feel okay. I wasn't okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was, they have this syndrome out there, which is called Effexor detox syndrome,
Okay.
where when you try to get off Effexor, as an antidepressant, it's like getting off of heroin. It is a very long, difficult process. And I remember trying to like get off of it cold turkey and just stop taking it. My wife can tell you that those couple days were pretty bad. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I just no patience, snapping in anger. I mean, I wasn't in control. So I never did that again. And now I finally have a physician. I have a psychiatrist who I see every 90 days. He's phenomenal. And I think that comes to finding your correct physician, finding your right person, and taking care of yourself, making sure you're on the right stuff. So every 90 days, we make sure, now I'm on this Prestique. I feel great. If something's not feeling right, I can email him, and then we see each other and we have the conversations to make sure we make the tweaks we need to. And that's kind of my thing with this pandemic, is that, people haven't been able to get in to see their physicians, or people have been so scared away from just going and seeing a PCP or the correct physician because of COVID, um, that people are just really, their quality of care has gone down.
Yeah.
And, they're not doing the checkups as often as they should. And obviously people are paying more towards their deductibles than they were used to. So, visits aren't covered the way they used to be. It's coming out of your pocket. I mean, I get it. However, it's your health. So I'm a big proponent of seeing the right physicians, building a good, trusting relationship with your physician, and that prescription meds have their time and place. But the thought process behind CBD is that once we start a minor inflammation or we have a joint area that is causing us discomfort, that instead of directly reaching for the pill bottle and taking 4 to 6 ibuprofen, why don't we start with a topical agent, see if we can take the pain down from a 7-8 to a 4-5, maybe even a 3, and become more mobile, more active, eat better, not become so sedentary. And that's the goal. So when we say one less CBD, we mean one less pill.
Mm,
Is kind of our mission. It's not never take a pill again. It's take less pills, make better, more natural homeopathic decisions about your health. And I think you can have a good mix of both, but it needs to be responsibly done, needs to be well researched, and there needs to be discussions with physicians
yeah.
and people who know what they're doing. To think you can self-medicate or go all natural, I'm often leery of those things, of subscribing to one area or the other. I think there's a time and place for everything.
Mm,
It's just knowing your body, knowing yourself, and creating the best remedy for you. And that may be a lot more natural homeopathic versus Western medicine, and that's great. That's good. I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying know your limits, and when natural homeopathic is not working, it may be time to go to Western medicine and see what else is going on here. So it's just having a good common sense
yeah.
approach to both. Not taking too many pills, not just simply going, okay, doc, give me a pill for this because this doesn't feel right. Why don't you try something else first before you just start saying, give me the pill.
Mm,
So that's our mission. My goal is less pill consumption, knowing what you're taking, um, being your own advocate, doing your own research, and knowing your own body, and not just subscribing to what seems like is being heavily marketed, like certain CBD products. Um, but at the same token, just as how many commercials do we see a day for pharmaceuticals? I
yeah.
mean, that's it. I mean, that's who controls commercials on television. Um, Everything from COPD to AFib to depression to migraines. I mean, it's constant. And
Mm,
is that really the right treatment for you? Just because Serena Williams takes Ubrelvy, does that mean that's the best migraine medication for you?
mm,
I don't know. You need to go talk to your physician about it. But on the same token, it's just because Joe Rogan takes CBDMD. Should you pop six CBDMD gummies every morning
yeah.
and think that you're going to be your best self? Again, common sense approach, making your own decisions and making your own decisions based on fact and knowing your body is what I'm about.
Mm,
That's my approach.
yeah. Yeah, and you have to be careful with just when something's trending, like right
Mhm.
now CBD is trending, people want to jump on it, and people could make the mistake, like you're describing, of saying, oh, this is my pain reliever or the solution to my problem. Put all your
Yep,
eggs in one basket and then stop whatever else your treatments were before. And I do
exactly.
have this exact discussion with clients pretty frequently. Oh, this is working so well for me coming and seeing you, Brandon. Can I stop taking my pain meds? And it's like, that's not a conversation for me. Go talk to
Right.
your doctor, tell them that now you have less pain, and let them make that decision with you. I don't make that decision. I don't know all the
Yeah,
details about your pharmaceuticals. Go talk to your
correct.
doctor about that. And I think that people can, like you're saying, they can kind of self-diagnose, make up their own mind about, well, I feel better now, so stop all of
Yep,
this stuff. And
exactly.
with in the world of pain, like if somebody is actually having a physical pain to something, then that can be that could be bothersome. It can be uncomfortable. You could go through an unfortunate process of ups and downs with your pains. But like in your situation, talking about being on antidepressants or anything that's a mood changing kind of drug that people are on, that's a whole different situation, right? There is a
Yeah,
pretty detailed process of getting on and off of those, and you don't really want to mess that up. So
nope.
yeah, that's that. I totally understand what you were saying
I
earlier
can tell
about
everybody from personal experience that is the 100% worst thing you can do is to, cold turkey an antidepressant.
yeah.
The tapering down process of getting off of Effexor and onto Prestique, and how precise my doc was with how we tapered down the milligrams, started introducing the Prestique, lower milligram dose, and lowering the milligram dose of the Effexor. I mean, it just made sense, and I could kind of feel the change in the mood and the stabilization of my mood. And I wasn't too high, I wasn't too low. I was just kind of right where I needed to be. And, but, that's okay. It's expensive for the first 90 days because I'm seeing them every 2 weeks versus now I see them every 90 days. But initially, I mean, you need to keep in touch. We need to know what's going on pretty regularly. What do we need to tweak? What do we need to do? Because I mean, you could, we've seen it before. One bad decision in a moment of haste or a moment of anger can lead to a lifetime of consequences. And, especially when you're dealing with a prescription, med that affects dopamine levels and, is firing your synapses in your brain. I mean, it's just, yeah, never do
Absolutely.
that again.
Yeah.
So,
Now, you were talking earlier about the different forms of CBD, and that's something that I've
mhm,
heard a lot about. I don't understand it, and I really want to know more.
yep.
You can have topical creams, and then you were saying about how you want to do more research with any kind of oral intake of CBD. And I just want to know, what are some of the different forms and
Mhm.
how are they different?
Yep. So here's my kind of CBD 101, which really, I think for the lay people, because, what's funny is that people who are really, there's a lot of people, there's a term out there you'll hear, it's called the entourage effect, where there are purists out there who believe that CBD with THC, and THC is a kind of psychoaddictive aspect of marijuana. That's what makes people feel like they're kind of ulterior universe, riding on a magic carpet, type deal. That's kind of the thing that most people are, when they think about marijuana or weed, that's what they're thinking, is the THC is what's causing those, effects. And so you hear the CBD THC mix, full spectrum CBD with THC is the only way to go. It's the only way you get the therapeutic benefits. It just couldn't, to me, it couldn't be further from the truth in doing my own research. Um, so, cannabis sativa essentially is a cannabis plant. Um, hemp and marijuana essentially are basically the same thing, come from this cannabis sativa. Well, hemp derived, when we talk about CBD, we're talking about hemp derived CBD, meaning that it's when they kind of do these measurements and they extract it, that the CBD in there contains 0.3% or less weighted THC. That THC is so minute and it's such on a small scale that you're not going to have any of those undesirable effects like you would have from an actual marijuana that's higher THC content, more terpenes, more cannabinoids. There's so many other compounds that go into the marijuana plant when you're extracting it and growing it a certain way. It all comes down to cultivation, extraction, soil chemistry, all those type of things. But there's, when we talk about CBD and where the CBD space is, where it really is coming from is hemp derived CBD, not marijuana derived. Um, they're one and the same, but in essence, CBD is really what we're talking about is the hemp plant. So we're kind of getting away from the whole THC perspective, and we're releasing products out there that will not produce that undesirable psychoaddictive effect that most people, in my opinion, especially baby boomers who are trying CBD products, they are so leery of that effect. They want nothing to do with it.
Mm,
Um, and the problem becomes that since we aren't regulated by the FDA, we essentially fall into beauty and cosmetics in a lot of
mm,
ways. And the big push before COVID was is that a lot of these companies want to be looked at as a dietary supplement, especially on the ingestible side. They
yeah.
want to be considered that. And the FDA has basically told you, you cannot label yourself as a dietary supplement. I
Hmm.
mean, that will get you a letter from the FDA. That'll get you a cease and desist.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot do that. You cannot tell people that this is going to do X, Y, and Z. CBD, when we put it out there, I can't tell people it's going to reduce pain or reduce inflammation.
Hmm.
That I can't do that. Most of the studies that have been done on CBD have really been done on rats. There are not
Hmm.
a lot of human studies out there. Now, there are some white papers, and there's more research coming out on CBD and its effects on depression, anxiety, inflammation, pain. But the initial findings really were derived from rats.
Hmm.
The so what happens is, and where this all kind of came from was early 1990s, the endocannabinoid system is basically discovered, that all of our bodies have this endocannabinoid system in our body. And basically, it helps our body kind of keep a state of homeostasis or balance. It controls everything from mood to inflammation to sleep to all these things. Endocannabinoid system, that's, kind of its role, interacts with the central nervous system. And endocannabinoid system is basically a way for our body to kind of regulate itself and keep like I said, keep a sense of balance. So the school of thought comes with CBD that the more cannabinoids that we release into the body, the more that we absorb, the more that our body is able to achieve balance and to achieve a sense of reduce pain, reduce anxiety, reduce, depression, increase mood, all those things. So when we think about it, the way I understand CBD and why I'm so enamored with the topical sense and what makes sense to me is, so when our body has an injury, let's say I'm out running and I tweak my ankle and my brain starts to fire really quickly because my brain is sending a signal that we're in pain. So my ankle is sending the message to the brain, body's in pain, brain's firing really quick, everything's going really quick. Well, cannabinoids are actually released at that time of injury. Cannabinoids are released in the body, and their goal is to reduce inflammation, to reduce that pain. The problem is that we also have cannabinoid enzymes in our body that are attacking those cannabinoids, kind of like Pac-Man. So
Hmm.
we think about it, we could think Pac-Man is coming and he's eating up all the cannabinoids, and our body now is not producing enough of these cannabinoids to let the body naturally reduce inflammation. That's why people then have to go get an ibuprofen, apply topical, do whatever, do ice, heat therapy, whatever it might be to reduce their pain. And so the school of thought has been, let's get more, we're supplementing, we're adding more cannabinoids to the body so that when we have an injury, we can block out those enzymes and we can let those cannabinoids get to the area of inflammation, get to the brain, if we're talking ingestible, and create more balance within the body and let it naturally heal itself. That's that's essentially the CBD 101 science behind why this is so intriguing to people, to scientists, to researchers, that it has this ability that if we can just get more cannabinoids in our body, then our body can achieve a more balanced state, less inflammation, less anxiety, less depression, whatever it might be. It's just
Hmm.
essentially a mood stabilizer.
Hmm.
Um, and that really spoke to me because on a topical sense, it made sense, and I was like, okay. But you kind of hear these things about the entourage effect, and I had to have a full spectrum CBD if I was going to accomplish anything. But when I dug into the research, most of the research was done on CBD isolate, and CBD
Hmm.
isolate essentially is just that. It's isolated CBD. It is 99.99% pure CBD. Kind of looks like powdered sugar granules, to
Okay.
the naked eye. It's kind of a white powdery substance. And that is pure CBD. There's no THC, there's no other terpenes, there's no other cannabinoids, there's no nothing. It is just pure CBD.
So wait, just to be clear, because I'm
Yeah,
writing this down right now,
yeah,
full spectrum has a little bit of THC in it versus isolate has no THC. Is that what I was
correct,
hearing? Okay. That's confusing
correct,
because full
exactly.
spectrum, I don't know, somehow, well, I guess no, that makes sense. Yeah, full spectrum. I guess
It
yeah, that
all
would
had,
mean it's
yeah,
like the different types. Okay, yeah. All right, that
it
makes sense.
all it all has to do with the extracting method and how well you're extracting the oil, basically comes out like crude oil when you get it, when you first extract it. I mean, it looks like oil, and it's dark, it's thick, and then it starts going through other processes like CO2 extraction and other things to start pumping out all those other undesired things that you don't want,
Mm,
in your CBD, or that you shouldn't have, too much THC, other cannabinoids, or that you don't want, um, to try to isolate it and just make it as pure of a CBD product as you possibly can. But then there's that school of thought, with the entourage effect, that, well, you got to have the other cannabinoids and terpenes, and you got to have the THC because they work synergistically together, and it's the only way you're going to get the desired effect. And to me, that's just somebody who has set themselves up as a marijuana dispensary and is just trying to make it, kind of costume themselves as a CBD purist,
mm,
but really is just waiting for full legalization of marijuana, and that's where their interests really lie,
gotcha.
is more more cannabis, marijuana derived school of thought versus CBD. And a lot of people don't want marijuana. Yeah, it's
Mm,
popular, but a lot of people don't want those effects. They just
mm,
want the relief. They don't want the other stuff. Um, and the problem is, and there's been plenty of articles about this, where they've pulled 12 to 15 products, and tincture, creams, gummies, and then they've tested their concentration levels, and they all typically, at least 95% of them, will miss the mark, whether it's the amount of milligrams they're claiming it's in their product, or how much weighted THC was in the product, which is usually more than what is legal. But again, since there's no regulatory body, and basically the 2018 Farm Bill just said that as long as you have 0.3% or less weighted THC, then you can cultivate, extract, put it in a consumer packaged good, and sell it. That's it. Nobody knew what they were doing. And I don't think it was done in a lot of ways. I really saw that it wasn't trying to be deceitful. It was, they just didn't know what they were doing. And there's a lot that goes into it. It's not easy. And it took me 2 years to get this thing right, and 20 some odd formulations to get it just right. And the company who was doing it for me, they've made plenty of lotions and creams in their past history for decades. They tested my product probably half a dozen times, because if they screwed up my batch, it was going to be more expensive for them to go back and fix it, because they'd be responsible for remaking it and getting it back to where it needs to be. But my product, because of its ingredients and its purity that we were after, I mean, it took a long time, and they would not put their stamp on it and say we're going to go to producing it until they felt like they had it right.
mm,
Um, and I don't think people are doing that, and they're just trying to rush it out there and get the product on the market, and, like you said, make as much money as they possibly can, and sell it for 3, 4, 5 times EBITDA, and make some money, and close up shop. Well, it's just like anything, .com bubble or anything like that. Anytime you just go down that rabbit hole of quick buck, some things get missed, and it's created a stain on the CBD industry that I didn't think was necessary. And it makes it tough because there are some great companies out there, and even some bigger ones. Charlotte's Web, fantastic company with a great story, and is pretty much like kind of the godfather of the CBD industry.
mm,
They do a phenomenal job. Green Roads is another pretty decent company out there, but then companies like CBD MD. My problem with them is that they're very much into the marketing and the celebrity endorsement versus the product, and they have so many products. And I'm like, you really telling me that every single product really hits the mark and really provides relief, and they have to do this regimen? No, it's sales 101.
mm,
Bulk, build the basket. You need the bath bomb, you need the tincture, you need the topical, you need the gummy, you need 5 or 6 things in your arsenal every single day,
mm.
which is simply not true. It's just retail 101,
Yeah,
you know, appease the shareholders.
right. This is how much merch we have, so this is how much you need.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
I mean, it's good business. It's just not good therapy,
Yeah.
for what you're trying to do, for what you're hoping the patient accomplishes, or the
Yeah.
customer. Because we're
Mm,
not doctors. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. I just knew people in a good place who knew what they were doing, and we had to figure it out.
Yeah.
because we had to figure out how to infuse the CBD, how many milligrams were going to be the right amount, how is all this going to work together in synergy and really create an anti-inflammatory response in the body.
Mm,
And it's not just the CBD, it's the camphor, it's the geranium, it's the white willow bark, it's the eucalyptus, it's the menthol, but not too much menthol. It's only 3% menthol. It's not
okay.
icy hot, which is 12 to 15% menthol. It's not that placebo effect of you get this cooling sensation and then 20 minutes later you're back in pain. That's icy hot.
Yeah.
Um, we wanted a real anti-inflammatory response that lasted and that people enjoyed applying. So I see CBD, way I see it, is that it's another added ingredient that we can now cultivate, we can extract, and it's just another tool in our belt to be able to produce a great topical.
Yeah.
That's how we see it. I don't see it as the end all be all. I
Mm,
see it as just another great natural ingredient out there, because the great thing about CBD, what is so positive about it, is that you can't overdose on it.
mm.
It's not addictive. It's not something that is harmful. It is some
Now, are you saying that specifically to the isolate form, or does that also apply to the full spectrum if people are taking that?
that would apply to the full spectrum as well,
Okay.
provided the full spectrum really is 0.3% or less weighted THC.
Okay.
You really could take that whole tincture and down that bottle. You might feel a little loopy, but because you are getting some THC and you're getting more than you probably should, as far as just that much at one time. But you're not going to have any type of overdose effects like you would have if you overdose. Like if you took a whole bottle of ibuprofen,
Hmm.
you're going to the hospital.
Yeah.
You drink a whole bottle of CBD that is really license bonded and has the right checks and balances with it. You might not feel all that great just because you got a ton of oil in your gut, but essentially, no, you're not going to overdose. You're not going to have the shakes. You're not going to have all that stuff.
Mm,
You're gonna be fine. Um, that's the cool thing about it. And where the opportunities are, like we could really do something here. But again, typical America, we over commercialized it, overhyped it, and too many hands in the pot. Venture capital, lobbyists, everybody's trying to get a piece of it, and
mm,
it gets muddied. The messaging gets diluted, and it's not good for anybody. The people who
mm.
suffer is the consumer, because I go to a gas station, I pick up a CBD product, it didn't work for me, therefore I swear off CBD.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
It's just not that way. And so you have to try to get those people back and say, look, yes, the gas station CBD was a poor choice, but there are some good products out there, and there really is some good science to this, and there is a reason for the hype. You just got to do your own research and have some common sense and be smart about what you're taking,
Mm,
and who you're getting it from. And that's why from the get-go, we were big on transparency. We have our certificate of analysis QR code, which is on every jar we have. We're pre and post product tested, so we test twice, not once, from third parties. Our big thing was full and utter transparency of what is in our jar is going to be in our jar every single time, no questions asked. I put the product on my kids. My kids have bruises or they have bug bites or any type of inflammation. Growing pains is a big thing with my 8-year-old. I don't think twice about putting the product on my kids because I know what I built.
yeah.
Um, and I know its safety, I know its efficacy, but at the same time, you can't, I'd love to go out there and just say, yeah, this is going to reduce your inflammation. This is going to work. This is going to be great. I can't say that.
Mm,
FDA is going to tell me no. You just can't do it because you're
mm,
just not there.
mhm. So I'd love to give people maybe some guidelines for purchasing CBD. I mean,
Yep.
of course, go buy one less CBD, but if we could put like objective barriers, do you just
Yeah.
never buy it from a gas station? Do you never buy it?
Sure.
What are you looking for? Like, are there ingredients listed on the back? What's the objective measures that people pick up a cream
Yep.
can of CBD and they can look at it and say, this is what I want, and this one, I don't want this other one.
Yep. So, and that's a great question. And I try to tell people that, it's One, I always look for what I tell people is where you're getting it from. So if I'm getting it from my chiropractor or, getting it from somebody that I can actually have a one-on-one conversation with that seems knowledgeable about the product, that's kind of step one for me. That if I go there and I can talk to somebody and they seem like they care about the products that they're carrying in their store, that there's organization and there's a reason they carry one versus the other, and they can answer those questions for you, then those people who are distributing that product have done their own research and have talked to those companies and believe in the products that they're bringing into their store. You're kind of looking, you don't want to see a sea of CBD, in a store. You want to see maybe three or four brands, and they may like one company's tincture really well, but they don't really like their topical, maybe just because of it's too oily. It works great, but people don't like having that oily feel on their skin, so they go for a creamier base with a higher absorbency. They like carrying that better than they do their topical. But if they can have specific reasons why they're carrying a specific product, and they have testimonials from other customers that have used the product that have had good results, that's one, a big one for me, is where you're getting it from. I think the smaller the business on the CBD side, the better. Um, and people who really do will have conversations with you on why they're carrying that product. But then when you pick up a jar and you're looking at it, one, can you pronounce most of the ingredients that are on it?
Mhm.
Two, can you get in contact with that company and
Mm.
actually get a response? And if you have questions about application or the amount to take or their testing procedures, you really want to make sure any good CBD company by now should pretty much have a certificate of analysis on their website for their products. Pretty
Okay.
much gold standard. That's pretty much a non-starter in my opinion. If you don't see a certificate of analysis about their product, about what their product contains and their concentration of CBD in their product, then I wouldn't even pick it up, because
Mm.
that's that's step 1A, in my opinion, if you're going to put out a consumer packaged good in this space, in the CBD space.
Yeah.
Um, and then, the problem is that, people do try to contact people and say, well, how much should I take? You know, on the tincture side, most of the droppers now are kind of in 0.25 milliliter applications up to a milliliter. So 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, 1 milliliter. The people who are good out there are probably going to start you on a 100 milligram low dose tincture, probably to tell you to take, 0.25 once a day for a week, and then start to kind of add, maybe another quarter of a milliliter per day, start taking it twice a day, and listen to your body. If companies are doing that and they're providing you information, they have good links to good websites about CBD, what it is, what it isn't. They're not making bold or bogus claims about what their product can do. That's a big one. If you see somebody on there and they're saying, we'll reduce your pain by 10 times,
Hmm.
X, you know, you stay away from them, because they're in it for the wrong reasons.
Mm.
So it's just, if they're out there and they're conveying a good message, they're not making bold false claims, because you cannot make those claims. The FDA has 100%. There's no gray area there. You do not make a claim about what CBD can or cannot do on your
Mm.
product.
Okay.
End of story. So if you see those claims out there, erroneous claims, or people trying to tout things that they shouldn't be, I immediately walk away from the product. But I think for me, the three big things are certificate analysis, um, good responsible ingredients, a way to contact the company that you can actually get a response and talk to a human being, and then just no bogus claims that really cannot be backed up by science,
Mm.
because it's just not there yet. Um, and one of the bigger reasons for that is that there's a childhood epilepsy prescription medication out there that is derived from CBD. It's called Epilodex.
Really?
Yeah, and that
Biologics.
yeah, and that actually has an FDA, CDC stamp on it, and that's kind of the problem, is that
Hmm.
the FDA is looking at CBD cannabis derived prescription meds and how they can use this because of that, again, that there's no overconsumption and no addiction,
Mm.
no overdosing, that they're really excited about it. They're like, God, what if we could, build some pharmaceuticals out of this that don't have these long-term side effects,
Yeah.
or keep people from addiction. Um, so there are, scientists out there and physicians who fully believe in it.
Mm.
It's just we're not there yet.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten that seal of approval. So that's kind of the problem with the FDA and them wanting people wanting to get the dietary supplement approval. FDA is like, well, we've got a prescription med out there.
Mm.
We can't have this in one area and then go, oh yeah, by the way, it's good for fat loss and energy and all this other stuff.
Mm.
It's mixed messaging. But I see some frustrations in the CBD industry's, thought process, and that there are things that are out on the market, especially vapes, that
Yeah.
have decimated our youth population, given, 14-year-olds lungs of 70-year-olds that are flavored like bubble gum and,
Yeah.
fruit punch. And you're trying to tell me that that wasn't really targeted at teenagers? Give me a
Yeah.
break. Um, so I see the frustration, there. I understand that, the purists out there who are trying to do it right face way more uphill battles than, big pharma and, tobacco companies do. So I get it because it's CBD is nowhere near the toxicity of those products, yet they have an easier time getting to market and getting credence,
Yeah.
than CBD products do. So I see the double standard.
Yeah.
But for some reason, just like Facebook, Google, you can't advertise on those platforms. You can't
Yeah.
advertise a CBD product; they'll pull you right off.
Mm.
But the vape companies can, alcohol companies can.
Yeah.
CBD companies are like, what am I missing?
Right. Right.
So I get it, but there's bad actors out there who, like anything, just ruin it for the rest of us.
Mm.
It's a tough space to be in. Even like banking for me was a chore. Trying to open a bank account, I had to open my bank account in New Jersey, because they had a high risk CBD division of their bank. Right.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, like, I couldn't just open a bank account. Once I said my company's name was One Less CBD, they said, Pinnacle, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, we don't do it. We don't have a
Wow.
program. So, but what's really cool in the past 6 to 8 months, Square,
Hmm.
merchant processor, who now is, kind of getting into the banking side
Mm.
and really about to disrupt the personal banking, or even commercial banking sector, which commercial banks need to watch out because Square's coming. Um,
I haven't heard of this yet. Oh,
yeah, so
interesting.
Square banking has been a life changer for me. One, they're my merchant processor. Do I pay higher fees? Yes. But am I worried about being shut down overnight? No, because
Mm.
it's Square. And I have that safety net of that company, um, knowing that my money's secure with them. And now I have a Square banking account. So all my money, I can run my business completely off that platform. And I don't have to worry one bit. I can't tell you how many companies have gone down the road with a merchant processor who says they have high risk capabilities and they'll take your account on, and somebody will be live one day selling products on their e-commerce site and be shut down the next.
Wow.
And no notice, no nothing. It's
Mm.
just, but with Square, Square is the bank. There is no third party that they have to answer to. Square is everything. They're the
Mm.
bank, they're the merchant processor. So there's comfort, in my business for that.
That's
And
cool.
that's what you need,
Mm.
but people want to save a buck or do whatever, and go with these other companies. I'm like, do so at your own peril,
Yeah.
because that, you will get shut down at some point.
Mm.
Um, and it's not for anything else, but some other company absorbed them and bought them out overnight. When they bought them out, they're like, no, we don't want CBD companies,
Mm.
and they'll shut you down.
So this brings me to a thought about um, just the differences from state to state. You know,
Yep.
I don't know all the different laws that have been passed, and I'm curious. Myself personally, I lived in California up until COVID, and then I moved over to North Idaho, which is where I am right now.
Hmm.
And I'm totally used to back in California, everybody's doing weed. CBD became
Yeah.
huge. It's like the thing there, right? I come
Yeah.
up here to North Idaho, and I think there's maybe one dispensary I've seen somewhere that's just the CBD. There's no, you can't do marijuana or anything like that up here.
Right.
But
Right.
I would be curious to know, for folks who don't know their own laws in their state, how could they figure out, can they use CBD in every different state? Is there different types of CBD that are legal in some states versus others?
Sure.
Could you help us with that?
Yeah, well, it all comes from that 2018 Farm Bill, which,
Okay.
took what essentially that did was it took CBD off the Schedule 1 narcotics list. So,
Mm,
like, CBD was up there with LSD, heroin,
gotcha.
cocaine, like CBD was in the same category, which was just comical. But it was what it was. It was basically up there with marijuana, and they just, they were one and the same. They were coming from the same plant. This is what it is. And finally, once more research was done and people really got it through, then 2016 you could start to grow it, and then the passage of the 2018 Farm Bill really opened up the legalization on the federal level. Now there are some states, I believe Iowa, North Dakota, um, Idaho used to be, but I think now that's opened up, and I think there's one other state, and it's just escaping me right now, where they still have pretty aggressive state laws in place to where you won't see a lot of dispensaries, you won't see a lot of
Right.
those things. But on a federal level, like I really can ship my product anywhere. My
Okay.
product is legal. But it was funny. I did a talk for a rheumatoid arthritis solutions program, medicine
Mm,
program for rheumatoid arthritis, which is more of like a dietary program that he used to kind of help get his rheumatoid arthritis at bay. Because I mean, the man was in debilitating pain. But he's based in Australia. And so he has some clients in Canada and some clients in Australia. The amount of red tape I would need to go through to be able to ship my product to Canada
oh,
is neither worth the money nor the headache to get that product over there. So
really?
I don't ship to Canada. I ship to the United States, and I try to keep it to the lower 48, but I have shipped to Hawaii before, but comes a little pricey. But really, it's up to the consumer to do some due diligence there. But on a federal level, provided your CBD product, like we said, again, that mark of 0.3% or less weighted THC, you really should be able to ship your product pretty much anywhere in the United States because it's federally supported. But some of those nuanced states like North Dakota, Iowa, where they have some tougher restrictions in play, just good to do your own due diligence and make sure that you're, you know, getting a product that legally, if you got caught with, there would be no, criminal, criminal reasons that you would, get in trouble
Right.
for having a CBD product. Or I just don't advise people, like, if you have a CBD product and you're going to go fly, why don't you just pack it
Yeah.
in your toiletry bag and just
Yeah.
put it in your suitcase. Let's it really doesn't need to be on your carry on. Um, you just never know how people are going to take stuff and their interpretations of laws and
Yeah.
guidelines. So
Yeah, there's just still kind of a stigma with it, and
exactly.
that's a hard thing. Is it's like, in us being in our niche little industry and part of the world, we look into it. We've worked with people who've
Well, we've
had the
researched it. Yeah.
benefits. We've researched it, more you than me, but I'm researching it now through you.
Yeah.
But you know a lot of people, when you say CBD, they're like, oh, people doing weed, and there's a whole stigma to it. And so you
Right.
do kind of have to be careful in terms of telling people that you're taking this topical. I knew somebody who moved from California to another state and was going through a chronic, condition, and wanted to
Hmm.
start taking CBD. And the other state just was really cracked down, did not have open laws about it. And so they had to be really careful. Oh, wait, when I moved to the state, I can't fly with it. I need to
Yeah,
like put it in my U-Haul and drive it across the states. And how am I
yeah,
going to start taking it? Like I'm really needing this because I don't want to be taking my pain meds and things like that, right?
yep, yep,
One more question that's really on my mind here. I've heard
sure,
from a few folks, and I just don't know if this is myth or maybe they were doing their doses wrong, or I'm not really sure, but I've heard
sure.
from a few folks that with CBD, you build tolerance over time and you take a certain amount, relieves your pain, then you eventually got to start taking more and more and more, and then it becomes unsustainable.
Mhm.
Is that true, or were they doing it wrong?
I think that comes down to, was it really having the desired effect in the beginning anyway? Or was it more of a placebo type effect? And that's
Mm,
that where my problem with ingestibles comes in, and which one were they taking, and where was it coming from, and what type of testing and transparency did that company have of that particular CBD they were taking. That by and large is the biggest problem with our industry, is that there's so many players out there, and there's so many different ways to extract, and do you have the right equipment? The CBD that you're harvesting, is it coming from, you know do they have the right paperwork and their certificates that they need? There's so many factors that go into making that product, that if the purity's not there, or something's off by just a small percentage, then yeah, over time it's going to lose its effectiveness, and the body's just going to self-regulate and say, I mean, it's same old thing.
mm,
It's just, it's like, eventually you become tolerant of ibuprofen, like I did.
mm,
I thought I had to take six. I only needed two, but in my
mm,
mind I needed six.
mm,
um so I think everybody's different, and the way CBD affects people is so across the board, which is why I think the FDA is so adamant that you don't make any bold claims, and there is no real rule as to how to dose and what the correct dosage is, what's the correct milligram concentration. It's there's so much we don't know still, which is what has always made me leery of the ingestibles. Is, okay, it's 200 milligrams. Okay, what does that mean? How many milligrams of CBD am I getting when I ingest this? When I hold it under my tongue for a minute, what is happening in the body when I do this? How much is just being, basically urinated out when, just like a multivitamin? How much vitamin C are we actually absorbing? Or vitamin D or whatever it is. So, for me, like I take a D3 every single day. 10,000 IU's D3. I take 2 pills every single day because I've done enough research that I think vitamin D3 is so important, and we're so deficient in it, that its health benefits much outweigh the risks of taking more D3. So that, to me, in my research, in my body, I know I have felt good taking D3 every day. But if I go a year down the road, am I still having the same effects by taking that D3 every day? Is it really doing for me what I think it's doing? Um, we don't know, because it's a vitamin D3.
mm,
There's been a lot of good research about it, that we need to keep taking it, and that it's great for our bodies and does all these great things. But am I absorbing all of that? Unless I get blood work done on a routine basis, how do we really know what we're getting from supplementing every single day? And that's where I think having the right conversations with your physician, being honest with them about everything you're taking, what your real diet is, what your real sleep patterns are, it all, and that's why the endocannabinoid system is so intriguing. It's because we're talking about everything, and trying to get our body and our central nervous system into this state of balance. And only getting 4 hours of sleep one night can throw everything out of whack.
mm,
And that's why I just think it's a good balanced approach, having the right conversations with the right people, listening to your body, doing the right things that are the right things. If you go out one night and have a bender at a bar, you're going to feel pretty bad. There's not much CBD is going to do for you after that. You got too much alcohol, too much toxin in your body. There's nothing that CBD is going to do for that. Same thing I tell people with my cream. It's not going to put your disc back in place. It's not going to put cartilage back that isn't there anymore. So we have to be honest with what we're trying to get out of this. Um, and I tell people I want to get you in less pain so I can get you more mobile, so your body can be active, so that it can naturally heal itself, so that you can take less pills and, protect your digestive tract, because overconsumption of ibuprofen eventually just causes so much internal distress, for our digestive system, um, that again, now we're getting thrown out of balance again. So it's just that holistic approach, and everybody's different, which is what makes us great, what keeps the world interesting. But it's difficult because there's no perfect regimen for every one person. The next person is not the same as the next.
Yeah.
And, that's why I encourage people to try things and have an open mind. But at the same time, there's also time to go see the doc when we've tried 10 or 12 things and nothing seems to be, you know, cutting the mustard. So we need to try something else.
Yeah.
Go to the doc. That's what they're there for. That's why they studied medicine. You didn't
Mhm.
study medicine.
Mhm.
Um, there's a reason. But, I get it. I get the apprehension. It's financial. It's scary, especially in the time of COVID right now. There's just so much we don't know. Um, it just becomes scary for people, and they don't know who to trust anymore. So that
Mhm.
they can trust themselves, they think. Um, but self-medicating and just making those decisions that could have real long-term effects. I just I really wish we would all get back to a common sense approach
Mhm.
of treating our bodies like you only get one of these. There's not another. We can't put our head on a different body
Yeah.
and start over. We get one shot at this, so you just try to do it right. And I think as a company, we do one product,
Mhm.
atopical. We have atopical formula, and we feel like we do it really well.
Mhm.
Um, but that's our focus. We're hyper focused on that product and making it the best product we can make
Mhm.
it. Which I think separates us from a lot of CBD companies, because most of them are at least 3 or 4 SKUs. And I've had people not take me on as distributors because they say you don't have enough SKUs. I'm like, fine, you won't take me on because I don't have enough products to put out there.
Yeah.
I get it, but this is a good product. This is in my mind, a great product.
Yeah.
But I don't play the game on the commercial side like most. But I'm not going to. I self-funded this company myself,
Mhm.
and built it. There's no special interest. There's no venture capital. It's me,
Mhm.
and just trying to stick to my guns and be true to what I am and
Mhm.
what I tried to create. And makes it more difficult. And I'm a little more gray than I used to be.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't do it any other way. I really
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Yeah. Matt, there's several things I appreciate about you and in this conversation. And one of them is kind of your message that you were just talking about. And it's a similar message to what I have for a lot of my clients. What's the low hanging fruit of treatment? A lot of times I mostly work with folks who have lower back pain, and they, lift something, they tweak their back, they find out that they have a bulge disc, and they immediately go to some kind of really intense injection, or maybe they go to getting a spinal fusion, which blows my mind. You just created permanent damage and expensive surgery. And a lot of people go straight to whatever has the highest price, or whatever has the highest damage, long-term, permanent, irreversible damage to their body. And it's like, wait. There was a bunch of low-hanging fruit over here that could
Yep.
have great benefits, are inexpensive, easy to use.
Yep.
I get that maybe it's not the first thing your doctor recommended, but you should maybe have a conversation with your doctor about these things, because there's some great options.
Exactly.
And in terms of using CBD, like just in my own office, if I was having somebody with CBD, you're totally right. Rubbing the CBD topicals on somebody's lower back is not going to put their disc back into place. They need to change posture, they need to do exercises, they need to have core stabilization. But just because I want folks listening to have the mindset that we're talking about right now,
Right.
they need to get out of that place of pain and inflammation so that they can put themselves into the posture and the exercise and the
Exactly.
core stabilization, right?
Yep.
And what you were talking about a second ago, if you're getting to that place of reduced inflammation and pain relief through typical NSAIDs, right? The typical pharmaceuticals that people are taking, then that's hurting your kidneys. And long term, it's just not the most sustainable option, right? So
Exactly.
I just want folks to know, I want folks who are listening right now to appreciate Matt's honesty, right? He's not painting this glorified picture of CBD. He's
Yep.
given us kind of the truth of the industry right here, the laws, the dosages, the ingredients, all the things that are out there. And that's because, and I see what you're doing, Matt. I see how you're trying to create, reputation, trying to create
Yeah.
trust within this industry, and I want people to appreciate that right now, because there's a lot, like you're saying, with COVID, with the pharmaceutical companies in America right now, there's a lot of mistrust.
Hmm.
So if we
Yep.
can find something that's alternative, that's a great low hanging fruit for folks to start plucking for their options of pain relief,
Yep.
and we can build trust in that low hanging fruit, then please, folks, like, try some of these options, do your research, look into it. I don't want you to come away from this episode with a bleak picture thinking, oh, CBD sounded too complicated, or it sounded like I can't trust people, or I don't know the industry. Matt's being honest with you because he wants you to be able to trust him. He wants you to be able to be educated about the industry so that you can see the benefits and not just be misled and then disillusioned
Yeah.
because you misunderstood something. So folks listening, I do really want you to understand there are great benefits for this. And Matt and I are just having an honest conversation. So if you got confused in it, check out his website, do more research on
Yeah.
it, listen to the podcast again. There's a lot of great stuff in there that you can be learning and getting for pain relief. So
No,
anyway,
and our
my
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I mean, our message is hope. I mean, it's I just think, for a lot of people, like you said, go to DEFCON 5,
Yeah.
immediately that, we just, okay, my disc popped out. So like you said, when you go get spinal fusion, that's okay. There was, like you said, about 25 different steps we could have taken before we went, that route. And like you said, that long term, once you make that decision, you can't go back. And that's what we're trying to tell people is that, our topical is we believe, we hope it's going to have great effects on your inflammation and is going to get you to a space where you just feel hopeful that it's not just it has to be this or nothing, that there are other options and there are other ways that you can do things, and it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be just a good approach, to trusting your body and putting it in the right path to success and healing. And it can all be great. We feel great about our product. It's just that we want to make sure that people know and have the right expectations going forward of what we're trying to accomplish and what we hope for them. Um, I put my topical on my temples and the back of my neck when I get a migraine. But eventually, the sumatriptan, generic Imitrex is coming out because I'm at the point of no return,
Mm.
and it's going to knock it out. But I'm going to try a few things before that migraine gets to that point, just to make sure that I'm not abusing the Imitrex. So
Right.
it's just being more aware, being more self aware,
Yeah.
and recognizing what things are really capable of doing. And once you figure that things out and you make the right decisions for you, because nobody knows you better than you. That's that. That's just it. And you know how you feel. The doctor doesn't know how you really feel.
Mm.
He can't go inside your body and feel your pain. He's got an idea, but unless you're being honest with him about everything that's going on, it's kind of hard for him to make the right diagnosis and to fix you. So, yeah, that's the thing. Is it's not to be blasé about CBD because the possibilities are endless. I feel great about it. I think it's a great industry. It's got a lot of hope. It's gotten muddied and over commercialized, overhyped, and we just need to bring it back to where, the kind of the purists out there, we were really hopeful about where this was. But, like anything, we kind of lost our way a little bit. I think we're finding our way back. So,
Awesome. Awesome. Matt, I've learned a lot, talked about a lot of big topics. I'll show you my different whiteboard that I have now. If people are looking, I've got a whole bunch of notes that I've scribbled down from this conversation, which is fun. I want to make sure we talked about all the good stuff for me to learn. Is there anything you feel like, oh shoot, Brandon, you got to make sure that you walk away with at least this knowledge of learning before we end? Is there anything I missed in my learning of this?
no, I think we covered it all.
Okay,
And,
cool.
I think that just people walk away with, the understanding of, what CBD is. Go out and do your own, research, really take the topics that we talked about, the entourage effect, research that, research CBD isolate, what it actually is, and try to find some of these studies like PubMed. It's a great place for some journals, out there to really see the studies that have been done, on CBD and on inflammation, specifically, and look at it from your condition, whether it's rheumatoid arthritis or degenerative disc or, stress fracture, see what's been out there, see what's been published, and do your own due diligence and make your own determination. But, like we said with our offer at the beginning, give it a try for a week or two, see what it does, and keep a pain journal. You know, keep it. Do something for 1 to 2 weeks, and then take off 1 to 2 weeks and see if you can really notice a difference. And that's what I encourage people to do. So.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, folks, if you've made it this far on the podcast, we appreciate you. Make sure you check out the links that we'll have. And if you need to go back to the beginning, remind yourself of all the contact info. Matt, love being able to talk to you today. It's been great. I've learned a lot. I think that it's benefited a lot of folks who have been listening in today. Appreciate you so much.
My pleasure.